The 77 of Dan Wheldon had achieved a maximum speed of 224 miles per hour on the front straightaway and had achieved the 24th position in the race. As the chain reaction of the crash increased and more cars became involved, the number 77 of Dan stayed low on the racetrack, consistent with an attempt to avoid race cars crashing up against the outside wall. Several race cars were in a cluster directly in front of the 77, including the 9 of Scott Dixon, the 10 of Dario Franchitti, the 14 of Mira, the 59 of Vizo, and the 83 of Kimball. As the 14 began to spin toward the infield, the 14 made contact with the 59 of Vizo and the 83 of Kimball. This gathering of cars is directly in front of the 77 and effectively blocked the path of the 77, which was about 2 race car lengths behind. Approximately 3.8 seconds before impact, Dan reduced the throttle from 100% to about 55%. Approximately 1 second later, the throttle was reduced even further, down to less than 10%, and the throttle remained in this position until contact. Dan applied the brakes approximately 2.4 seconds prior to contact and had decelerated from 224 miles an hour to 165 miles an hour as he made contact with the right front of the 77 on the left rear of the 83. The impact with the 77 and the 83 registered 24 Gs longitudinal and negative 23 Gs vertical on the accident data recorder of the 77 car. The 77 became airborne with a nose upward vertical orientation and began to roll to the right. The right rear of the 77 made contact with the racing surface, and the chassis then traveled rearward first in an upright position towards a safer barrier in turn 2. The 77 traveled in a nose-up, semi-airborne state for approximately 325 feet. The chassis of the 77 impacted a post along the right side of the tub and created a deep defect in the tub that extended from the pedal bulkhead along the upper border of the tub and through the cockpit. As the race car passed by, the pole intruded into the cockpit and made contact with the driver's helmeted head. Dan's injury was limited to his head injury. During the accident, Dan appeared to suffer 2 distinct head forces during the accident. The first head force created levels through a head injury criteria, also known as a Hick number, that normally does not produce any injury. These numbers were determined after the initial impact with the 83 car, and Dan's car traveled in contact with the racetrack and the 59 car all the way from the initial impact all the way up until hitting the catch fence. During that crash sequence, the accident data recorder measured 12 or 13 impacts. It is during that time frame that one of those impacts measured a measurable head injury criteria number for Dan. That's the number that does not normally produce an injury. The number was low enough that that is not an injury-causing moment. The second force was a physical force and a physical impact, and it is the second force that produced the non-survivable blunt force injury traumas to Dan's head. There was no evidence of mechanical or structural issues contributing to this accident. The safer barrier and the fence system appear to have functioned as designed during the accident. The impact with the fence that resulted in Dan's non-survivable injuries involved the circumstances of location, direction, and orientation that were the chance result of previous interactions.